What I am learning is that if I want to be more creative and live a more creative life, it's better to not do it in isolation. I got to Tangier a couple days before Ramadan, and the first thing on my agenda was to get to the liquor store to buy wine. I researched ahead of time. I found that there was a store just down the block from where I was staying. So I went there. I think it was like the day before Ramadan or maybe 2 days before. It was 2 days because I remember the next day they were closed and I was really excited that I had made it. I was gonna be in Tangier during Ramadan for a month, and it was pretty much dry outside of like select touristy places. And I was staying downtown, so I wanted to get some wine. So I went to the liquor store, and this really nice guy helped me pick out some Moroccan wine. I think I bought like 6 bottles because I wanted wine for like the whole month. I knew that Tangier had a deep history for queer artists. And I just knew that from the literary texts about the Beat Generation. And I knew that from the film Naked Lunch. And I wasn't really sure what it is like today. The experience I had gender-wise as like a brown woman alone in Tangier was definitely very interesting. I remember going to like the little shop across the street to get some essentials, and it being very multi-generational, where there was like a young person, kind of someone my age and someone like older, and like all men. And it was so awkward. I felt like they just were looking at me like, what am I doing here? Why am I alone? What am I doing? What am I looking for? In my essay about practical effects, I decided to look at 3 of Cronenberg's films, which I mentioned in some of my previous videos. And Naked Lunch was one that I have loved since I was a kid. I probably didn't understand it as well when I was a young person and saw it, but I definitely watched it again a few times over the years. And it was a special moment to actually watch it while I was in Tangier. And I did decide to go to the hotel where William Burroughs wrote the text. I didn't actually end up going inside. I kind of regret that. And I got there right at like sunset, like dinner time. So like the bells and the prayer were going for people to get ready to end their fast for the day and go have dinner. And so when I got there, there were 2 gentlemen coming out, and I could tell that they were like gonna go to dinner, and I didn't want to interrupt them and say, hey, can I come inside? Because supposedly you can ask them and they'll let you in the room that he stayed in and that he wrote in. But yeah, I mean, I was there long enough that I could have went back again, but it like took me a while because I wanted to like get to a certain point in the book before I went, so I could have like process it more and like understand it. I don't know. I had kind of a hard time in Morocco, and I remember when I was leaving, I was like, get me out of here. I'm never coming here again. And now I've had some time has gone by, and I feel like I could see myself going there again and doing some of the things that I didn't get a chance to do. In Tangier, being a woman on my own, I don't think it's anything quite like what people have said they experienced, let's say in Casablanca or Marrakesh. Tangier is a little bit more laid back, which was, one of the reasons that I chose it. For the most part, I felt okay traveling by myself. It was really my first time to go to a Muslim country. And one of the things that was hardest for me in both Morocco and here in Albania is the culture around men and women and the gender difference and how many men hang out in cafes. So I love cafes, but when you're a woman by yourself and you go to a coffee shop and it's just full of dudes, it can be, and it was for me, a little bit triggering. And I came from a really gay city, from Seattle, and just a life where there's just a lot of women and gender non-conforming people. And I really don't spend a ton of time around cisgender straight men. And so I found myself in Morocco for the first time in years, just being surrounded with no women to be found. And so I learned a little bit about why that was. I went to a women's history museum here in Albania. And I learned that a lot of times the women either are busy at home, kind of keeping the home up, and that's why you don't see them as much out at the different coffee shops. That the women that go out, they like to go to places that are like aesthetically nice. They have certain ones that they go to, and whereas the men kind of just go to the neighborhood local coffee shops. So it can be a little intimidating to come into a space that is just all men with no women around. It's also not that like laptop culture that we have in the United States. I found that in general outside the US, I think it's just culturally not really what they use their cafes for, and so I found the same thing here in Albania and in Morocco. It's mostly men that are there. And as a queer woman, it's not ideal. So I had a mixed experience. I had some more aggressive experiences, like with the guys who are at the beach and offering horse rides and things like that. In my essay, I talk about queer world building as well. So I think that Naked Lunch does an amazing job with practical effects and building this imaginary world that is based both on some truths and also some fiction. And I think it's just a great hybrid of taking Burroughs' story that he wrote in the state that he was in, and dealing with addiction and substance abuse, and what I would say is probably some mental health things going on, and so many challenges, and then trying to write from that space, I think is really interesting. And so I know that he was not coherent when he was writing his piece. I found a lot of the text kind of challenging to read. I was shocked a little bit by myself because I'm very open-minded, and I'm not really judgmental, but I found myself at times reading Naked Lunch and being like, what? I definitely felt very, I definitely felt, um, and also just the vocabulary and the words, it's really amazing. I mean, there were many things that went over my head that I had to like reread to try to understand. I knew when I got there that I wanted to read the book while I was in Tangier. Now, I had been in Spain just before this, so I tried to get the book in Spain to take it with me, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a shop that carried it in English. And so I ended up just saying, well, I'm sure that I can get it no problem, in Tangier. And actually, it was kind of hard. I kept going to different places. I thought they would be selling it for like touristic type purposes, knowing this like long-standing queer history or something, and they would be selling it and it would be easy to get. But it actually wasn't around. And I found out, unfortunately, that it is technically illegal to be gay in Tangier. It was an interesting experience to kind of keep my queerness on the DL for the first time since I came out. I'm somebody that kind of came out and then just would stop talking about it, which I think happens probably for a lot of people who, I don't know, I guess everyone's different. For me, I ended up coming out in a really gay city and in my 30s, and I got a job where people were queer and it was okay to talk about being gay. And so it was kind of the most ideal situation that you could have to kind of come to terms with, I guess I would say, and discover this about myself. I wouldn't say that I was in the closet, so to speak. I think that being in the closet is kind of a generational concept, but I also think it means different things to different people. To me, in the closet means you have like a certain level of awareness about yourself and your sexuality and your identity around that you are, keeping hidden for one reason or another. And for me, I really was like very repressed. So I didn't actually like identify with myself being gay before I came out. I always thought that women were attractive, but I thought that everyone thought that, So I definitely had to work through compulsive like heteronormativity and repression and all of these things, to get to a place where I was even asking questions about my sexuality and what I was interested in and who I was attracted to. And even now, almost 12 years later, I'm having like a second coming out stage. I mean, being as feminine presenting as I am, I'm kind of always coming out, but I mean in a sense that I really professionalized my queerness before I like embodied it personally in my life. You know, I became kind of a spokesperson for a lot of queer moments in the work that I was doing in the city that I was doing, and I felt comfortable and proud about that. But when it came to my actual personal life, I've taken years off at this point of dating at all. So it's a really interesting place to be queer and gay, but not really participating and engaging with other queer people in a more intimate way. But I just think that my isolation was a healing space that I needed for myself. I think that when I was living heteronormatively, I had a lot of challenging experiences. And then I ended up finding monogamy, and I stayed in that for a while with a couple of people. And it kind of protected me from some of the things that I had been navigating before that. But overall, I would say when I look back, I had a very traumatized experience when it came to dating and my sexuality and even engagement with other people, that I just needed like a timeout. And I will admit, I think it's probably gone on a little longer than it should have. And, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about in this essay, and really with my channel and my work, is that a lot of reflection on making the certain decisions that I made to just kind of stay on my own and not really engage too deeply with people and not take my relationships, friendships, and other kinds of relationships that deep, because I just really didn't have the capacity. And so when I was in Morocco, I pretty much had this epiphany because I was so isolated. It was Ramadan, everyone was with their families, there really wasn't anything open. I was downtown and I wasn't in the Casbah where it's like more tourist area. So I just was by myself and was really isolated. And I could only help but reflect on how this had been my choice to do this, and that I had not kind of tried to reach out and connect more with other people. And I still struggle with that, but now I have the desire to connect with other people, but for a long time, I really didn't. Ended up stumbling upon this like shop, which I talk about in my essay, Interzone Tangier. And it was so cool. It's like all this memorabilia about kind of every film and media that has been inspired by Tangier. And so they're selling all of these like keepsakes and different things in books. And they had several of Burroughs' texts there. And I was able to get a really affordable copy of Naked Lunch. And I decided to read it while I was there. I also wanted to rewatch the film. So I did end up downloading the film, and it was just a really surreal experience to both be reading the book, watching the film, and being in this city that has such a deep and rich history, especially for queer Westerners. And so I did some research about that, both when I was there and, last fall when I first started writing this piece. I have been in this healing space. That's why I talk about transformation, is that yes, this healing is necessary and everyone's different. I don't really like it when people are like, you should get over your healing, because you don't know what people are going through. I think that it's so rude to tell someone that they just need to get over the compounded traumas and issues that we've dealt with for a long time or even throughout our whole lives. And so for me, I really am looking more at take the time that you decide that you need to heal. Recognize that life goes on and the years go by. And so the more time you stay in an isolated healing state, you are going to lose out and miss out a little bit on what's going on around you. But when you're ready to actually recognize what it is that you're going through and what you had to heal through, then the next step is to transform, transform yourself and your life and your situation. And so the last couple of years, I've been traveling around the world. I've gone to 10 countries across 4 continents, and have just been really sitting with myself in this period and recognizing that I did need that time and space. It's okay, even if other people don't understand it. And now I'm ready for that transformative moment where I can actually apply what I learned to myself and to new relationships that I could develop. And so when I was in Morocco, I just kind of really had a chance to sit with this. And now it's been a year later, and I'm finally opening up and talking about it. Now I feel ready for a new chapter in my life, for building a new queer world, both for myself and in the world with other people. And so I'm looking to connect and collaborate creatively with people. I'm hoping to maybe I'll even start dating again. I don't know about in Albania because I'm in Albania right now and it's not really feeling a match for me, but it's my Pluto is here when you think about astrocartography, if you follow that. And so I knew what I was getting into when I came here. And it hasn't been completely easy, but I've definitely learned a lot about myself, and it's challenged me to really think about how I share myself with the world, and knowing that it was time for me to make a shift, time for me to transition from who it was that I told myself I was and who other people told me I was, and really move towards defining myself for myself and sharing that story. For example, professionally, I'm trying to move away from institutional storytelling, which is something that I've done for a long time, and now work more on producing stories creatively, both my own and working in collaboration with others who are producing creative stories. That's been something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. And it wasn't until I took this time to go abroad, to step away from my work, spend time on my own, that I was able to see that I wasn't really happy with what I was doing and the path that I was going down. And I learned a lot over the years, but that I was kind of just being taken where opportunities were leading me instead of making choices for myself on where it is that I wanted to go and actually paving my own path. I kind of just was letting the current drive me, and it just lasted for over 20 years. And now I'm like, okay, I'm at a certain stage in life where it's like, this is my time and my turn now to decide where I'm going to go next. I'm someone who's always done my creativity, my personal creativity, my personal creations on my own, challenged to share them with an audience and with other people. And that's one of the reasons that I started this channel and that I started writing and sharing my writing on Substack, was that I wanted to finally share what I had to say with an audience, that I actually do need to connect with other people, and that we all need support and we all need people to bounce ideas off of. It takes community to build worlds together. And what I noticed was that Cronenberg used physical, practical effects to build his international zone, and that William Burroughs built a world with his words, and that he also had the support of other beat writers and artists that help him construct those worlds and put them together. What I realized through this very meta naked lunch experience was that art and creativity is just better in collaboration with others.